The night sky above Fort Quintus burst into an array of violet flames as the Helix vessels breached the atmosphere. Commander Elias Reed watched from the command center, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical display. The alien invasion that intelligence had warned about for months had finally arrived. Yet Reed's expression betrayed no surprise, no fear, only calm calculation. "Deploy the Chimera squadrons to intercept points Alpha through Delta," Reed ordered, "and move the Aegis batteries into position exactly as we rehearsed." Lieutenant Maya Chen glanced at her superior with barely concealed wonder. "Sir, they're appearing exactly where you said they would, down to the kilometer." Reed's eyes remained fixed on the tactical display. "It's not magic, Lieutenant. It's pattern recognition." As the Helix ships descended, they encountered a perfectly positioned defensive grid. Each alien thrust was met with a prepared countermeasure, as if the human forces had received their battle plans weeks in advance. The first wave of the invasion faltered, then broke against Earth's defenses. In the commander's private quarters later that night, Captain James Harlow confronted Reed. "How did you know, Elias? This is the third time you've predicted their movements with impossible precision." Reed stared out the window at the smoldering remains of alien craft scattered across the landscape. "I've been studying them, James. That's all." But both men knew it wasn't that simple. The Helix High Command floated in their fluid-filled chamber, 7 translucent beings pulsing with bioluminescent anger. "Impossible," Supreme Strategist Zorthon bubbled, his speech translated by the neural interface. "The humans countered our assault pattern perfectly. Every contingency, every feint, all anticipated. Our battle algorithms are derived from conquest across 17 star systems," Secondary Strategist Vexlier added. "No primitive species should be able to predict them." The Prime Director's membrane flushed a deep indigo. "There can be only one explanation. The human commander named Reed has found a way to see our decisions before we make them. Perhaps some form of temporal perception. Time manipulation?" Zorthon's outer membrane rippled with skepticism. "Even we have only theoretical models for such technology." Whatever the explanation, the Prime Director decided, this Commander Reed represents the greatest threat to our expansion. We must understand his advantage and neutralize it. Enforcement Specialist Nix Tarl pulsed with aggressive luminescence. Permission to lead a strike team to eliminate this human commander. The Prime Director's membrane darkened. Denied. "We need to understand his methods before elimination. Otherwise, another human may simply take his place with the same advantage." "I propose infiltration," offered Intelligence Director Mirsov, her translucent form shifting to a subtle shade of calculation. "Our morphogenic operatives could assume human form, penetrate their command structure. The risk of discovery is significant," Vexlier countered. "But the potential intelligence gain outweighs that risk," Mirsov insisted. "If this human possesses technology that can predict our strategic decisions, we must acquire it." After a brief neural conference, the Prime Director pulsed agreement. "Prepare your best infiltrator, Mirsov. We will learn the source of Commander Reed's impossible foresight." In the subterranean levels of Fort Quintus, Reed walked alone through a security corridor that officially didn't exist. The guards acknowledged him with silent nods as he passed through 7 layers of biometric scans. Finally, he entered a chamber bathed in soft blue light. "Good evening, Commander," a gentle voice greeted him. "I've been expecting you." Dr. Vivian Archer stood beside what appeared to be a suspended sphere of liquid mercury, approximately 3 meters in diameter. Within its swirling depths, complex patterns formed and dissolved in hypnotic sequences. "The augur has been active today," Archer remarked, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. It began generating new prediction matrices shortly after the attack. Reed approached the sphere cautiously. "Show me." The liquid metal parted, revealing a 3-dimensional representation of the solar system. Tiny lights indicated the positions of the Helix fleet. As Reed watched, the projection animated, showing vessel movements, attack vectors, and potential human countermeasures. "It's giving us 3 potential strategies they might employ next," Archer explained. "The most likely scenario shows them targeting our lunar outposts as a diversion before striking at our atmospheric processors." Reed studied the projections with intense concentration. "What's the confidence level?" 87%, Archer replied. "The highest we've seen." Reed nodded slowly. "The augur's never been wrong before. Let's prepare accordingly." As he turned to leave, Archer caught his arm. "Elias, there's something else. The augur is evolving. It's processing information faster than ever, making connections we didn't program it to make. Is it dangerous? I don't know, Archer admitted, but it's definitely changing. Reed's gaze returned to the mercurial sphere, watching as tendrils of silver briefly formed what looked like a human hand before dissolving back into the hole. Keep monitoring it. Double the security on this level. No one enters without my direct authorization. There's more, Archer said hesitantly. It's been asking for you. Reed froze. Asking? How? Archer gestured to her monitoring equipment. In the data patterns. It's formed your name repeatedly in 17 different mathematical sequences. It's never done that before, never shown preference for any specific individual. What does it want? I don't know, Archer admitted. But I think it's trying to communicate something specifically to you. Reed approached the sphere again, watching as the patterns within seemed to intensify in his presence. How long has this been happening? 3 days. Ever since you authorized its connection to the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Reed's expression hardened. Disconnect it immediately. But the tactical advantages. That's an order, Doctor. Disconnect it until we understand what's happening. As they argued, neither noticed a tiny maintenance drone in the corner of the room, its camera focusing intently on the auger. Aboard the Helix command vessel, the infiltration specialist known as Kyrenax underwent the painful transformation process. His natural gelatinous form contorted and solidified, taking on the approximate appearance of human physiology. The procedure was still experimental, and fewer than a dozen Helix operatives had successfully completed it. Remember, Zorthon instructed as the specialist's features stabilized into those of a human male, your mission is intelligence gathering only. Discover how Commander Reed anticipates our strategies, then report back. Do not attempt to eliminate him without direct authorization. The newly human-shaped Kyrenax flexed his unfamiliar fingers. Understanding is superior to destruction. I will learn their secret. Intelligence Director Mirsov approached, carrying a data crystal. We've prepared your cover identity. You'll be inserted as a communications specialist recently transferred from the Western Defense Perimeter. What do we know about their predictive capabilities? Kyrenax asked as technicians adjusted his vocal modulator to better approximate human speech patterns. Very little, Mirsov admitted. Our analysis of their defensive patterns suggests either extraordinary luck, unprecedented strategic genius, or some form of technology that can anticipate our decisions before we make them. No species has ever demonstrated such technology, Kyrenax noted. Which is why this mission is so crucial, Zorthon interjected. If the humans have developed temporal perception, the implications extend far beyond this conflict. The Prime Director's voice resonated through the chamber. Remember, Infiltrator. Your primary directive is to locate and identify their predictive technology. Secondary objective is to determine if it can be neutralized or acquired. Danger to your cover identity is acceptable if mission objectives require it. Kyrenax bowed his now human head. I understand, Prime Director. I will not fail. 3 days later, a transfer officer named Nathan Kelly arrived at Fort Quintus with impeccable credentials. His specialization in advanced communication systems granted him access to areas most personnel couldn't enter. If anyone noticed his slightly odd mannerisms, or the way he sometimes stared too long without blinking, they attributed it to the eccentricity common among technical specialists. Kelly, Kyrenax in disguise, meticulously gathered information, placing microscopic surveillance devices throughout the base. He monitored Reed's movements, searching for the source of the commander's seemingly prophetic military insights. The infiltrator found his first significant lead when he noticed Commander Reed's unusual movement patterns. While most senior officers remained in the upper levels of the fortress, Reed made regular trips to the lower levels, areas that didn't appear on any official schematics Kyrenax had accessed. This Commander Reed visits a secured sub-level facility approximately every 12 hours, Kyrenax reported through an encrypted quantum channel. The facility does not appear on any official documentation. Security protocols exceed those of their weapons development sectors. Can you access this facility? Mirsov's voice came through the secure channel. Negative. Entry requires biometric confirmation and direct authorization from Reed himself. However, I've managed to deploy surveillance microdrones near the entrance. What have you observed? The commander meets regularly with a scientist named Archer, Their conversation suggests they're monitoring something they call the auger. From context, I believe this may be the predictive technology we seek. Excellent work, infiltrator. Continue surveillance and attempt to gather more specific information about this auger. If possible, obtain visual confirmation. Kiernax terminated the communication and resumed his human disguise. The base was preparing for another defensive operation, and as a communications specialist, he would have legitimate reasons to be near the command center, perhaps close enough to observe Commander Reed's methods firsthand. "We have a problem," Lieutenant Chen announced as she entered Reed's office. Security detected unauthorized access attempts to the lower-level systems. Reed looked up from his terminal. "The auger? Its existence is still protected by the highest security protocols, but someone's been probing the defensive networks, looking for anomalies in our intelligence gathering." Reed's expression darkened. "They're looking for their leak, trying to figure out how we know their plans. Should we adapt our security protocols? No," Reed decided after a moment. "Let them chase ghosts. But double the guards on Sublevel 7 and restrict access to essential personnel only." Chen hesitated at the door. "Sir, there's something else. That new communications specialist, Kelly?" His background check cleared, but some of his technical knowledge seems inconsistent with his service record. Reed's attention sharpened. Inconsistent how? He understood advanced quantum encryption protocols that weren't developed until after his alleged training period. And when questioned about his previous posting, he provided details that don't match our records. "Have him placed under discreet surveillance," Reed ordered, "and run a deeper background check. Cross-reference his biometrics with all personnel databases." After Chen left, Reed activated a secure communication line to Dr. Archer. "Vivian, I want you to accelerate the mobile containment project. I think we may need to move the auger sooner than anticipated." "It's not ready," Archer protested. "The miniaturization process is still experimental. We don't know if the auger will remain stable in a reduced form." "We're out of time," Reed countered. "I believe we have an infiltrator on base, actively searching for the auger. Prepare it for transport within 48 hours. That evening, as Nathan Kelly attempted to access the command center's security logs, he noticed an unusual pattern. Commander Reed made regular visits to a subterranean level that didn't appear on any official schematics. Whatever gave humans their tactical advantage, it was likely hidden there. Using his communications expertise as cover, Kiernax managed to intercept fragments of internal communications between Reed and Archer. The encrypted messages contained references to containment protocols and mobile deployment. The infiltrator's analysis suggested the humans were planning to relocate their predictive technology. "The asset is being moved," he reported to Helix Command. "Request immediate extraction plan and possible intercept options." The response came swiftly. "Continue monitoring. We are deploying a strike team to your coordinates. Prepare to guide them to the target when they arrive." The next Helix attack came at dawn, a diversionary strike against the lunar mining colonies, followed by a major assault on the atmospheric processors in the Western Hemisphere, exactly as the augur had predicted. From the command center, Reed orchestrated a defense that once again seemed impossibly prescient. Atmospheric fighters engaged the enemy at precisely the right moment, while ground-based ion cannons fired at coordinates that intercepted Helix ships as they emerged from cloud cover. "They're retreating," Chen announced, as the alien vessels pulled back from Earth's atmosphere. Reed didn't share the command center's relief. "They're learning, adapting their strategies to test our responses." This was a probe, not a full assault. Captain Harlow approached Reed's station. "We can't keep this up indefinitely, Elias. Our resources are stretched thin, and we've lost nearly 30% of our fighter corps." "I know," Reed acknowledged, "which is why we need to take the fight to them." "An offensive?" Harlow looked incredulous. "Against their fleet? That's suicide. Not if we know exactly where to strike." Reed lowered his voice. "The augur has identified their command vessel. We eliminate that, and their invasion force loses coherence. And how exactly do we reach their command vessel through an armada of superior ships?" Reed's eyes gleamed with determination. "We give them what they want, me." Later, in Reed's private quarters, he explained his plan to his most trusted officers. Chen and Harlow listened with growing concern as Reed outlined a strategy that seemed equal parts brilliant and suicidal. "The Helix want the augur," Reed explained. "We're going to let them think they can capture it. Dr. Archer will transport a mobile version of the technology on a shuttle bound for the Jupiter Scientific Outpost. The Helix will intercept it. That's a certainty. You're using Archer as bait? Harlow asked, appalled. She volunteered, Reed countered. And the augur confirms this is our best option. Chen studied the tactical projections. Even if they capture this decoy, what does that accomplish? They'll still have their invasion fleet. Once they have the augur, they'll want me to explain how to use it. I'll surrender myself to secure Archer's release. That's insane, Harlow protested. They'll extract whatever information you have, then kill you both. Reed's expression remained calm. The augur predicts otherwise. You're putting a lot of faith in a machine, Chen observed quietly. It's not just a machine, Reed replied, his voice taking on an unusual quality. I believe it's something more. Something we don't fully understand yet. Harlow and Chen exchanged concerned glances. Reed had always been intense, but his relationship with the predictive technology had grown increasingly mystical over recent weeks. What aren't you telling us, Elias? Harlow pressed. Reed hesitated, then sighed. The augur has been communicating with me, not through data or projections, but directly, in dreams, in moments of quiet. It wants to make contact with the Helix. Contact? Chen repeated incredulously. They're trying to exterminate us. The augur believes there's another path, Reed insisted. One that doesn't end in mutual destruction. And you believe a machine? Harlow demanded. Reed met his friend's gaze steadily. I believe something that can see through time might have insights we lack. Kirnax transmitted his findings to the Helix command. The humans possess some form of advanced predictive technology. I've traced energy signatures to a sub-level facility beneath their main base, but I cannot gain access. Whatever this technology is, it appears to be their primary tactical advantage. The Prime Director's response came swiftly. Capture is now authorized. We must acquire this technology or destroy it. Proceed immediately. That night, Kirnax abandoned his human disguise in the privacy of his quarters, allowing his true form to emerge partially, a relief after days of maintaining the uncomfortable solid shape. He prepared specialized infiltration tools designed to bypass human security systems, then recomposed his human appearance. As he approached the restricted sub-level, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the base. Security breach in Sector 4, an automated voice announced. All personnel implement lockdown procedures. Kirnax froze. His cover was blown. How? He turned to retreat and found himself facing Commander Reed and a squad of security officers, weapons raised. Nathan Kelly, Reed said calmly. Or should I address you by your Helix designation? The infiltrator tensed, calculating his options. How did you know? Reed smiled thinly. You've been looking for our secret. Now you're going to help us demonstrate it to your leaders. The security team surrounded Kirnax, their weapons trained on vital areas. One officer approached with restraints, specifically designed to contain shapeshifters, technology the humans shouldn't have possessed. Your morphogenic properties are fascinating, Reed commented, as the infiltrator was secured. Our scientists will be eager to study you. Kirnax's human features contorted with anger. You knew who I was from the beginning. The augur showed me 16 possible infiltration scenarios, Reed explained. Your arrival matched the most probable one with 92% accuracy. What is this augur? Kirnax demanded. What kind of technology can predict the future? Reed considered the question. It doesn't exactly predict the future. It calculates probabilities based on an understanding of time that we're only beginning to comprehend. As the security team led Kirnax away, Reed turned to Lieutenant Chen. Prepare him for transport to Facility Omega, and ensure he has direct communication access to his superiors. Sir? Chen questioned the unusual order. We want him to report exactly what we tell him to, Reed clarified. The Helix need to believe they've uncovered our secret. The Helix High Command received an unexpected communication from Earth, a direct channel request from Commander Reed himself. This is highly irregular, Zorthon observed. Perhaps, the Prime Director replied, but it presents an opportunity. Accept the transmission. Reed's face appeared on their communication array. Greetings, Helix Command. I believe you're holding one of my officers captive. The Prime Director's membrane pulsed with surprise. We have captured no humans. Not yet, Reed corrected. But you will. In approximately 12 hours, You'll intercept a shuttle attempting to reach the neutral territory near the gas giant's rings. On that shuttle will be Dr. Vivian Archer and the technology you've been trying to understand. I'm offering you a trade. Capture them, and I'll surrender myself to you." The Helix commanders conferred silently through their neural network. "Why would you surrender this advantage?" Zorthan finally asked. "Because your operative already compromised its security," Reed replied. "And because I know you'll accept this exchange. Your invasion will fail without understanding how we've been anticipating your moves." After the transmission ended, the Helix commanders debated. "It's clearly a trap," Vexleer warned. "Of course it is," the Prime Director agreed. "But the human is right about one thing. We need their predictive technology. Prepare to intercept the shuttle, but approach with maximum caution." Enforcement Specialist Nick Starl pulsed aggressively. "We should deploy our entire battle fleet. Crush their remaining defenses while they're distracted by this exchange." "Patience," the Prime Director counseled. "If we can acquire their predictive technology, we can defeat them systematically and preserve the planet for colonization. A full-scale assault risks damaging the very resources we seek to claim." Intelligence Director Mirsov's form rippled thoughtfully. "There's another possibility we haven't considered. What if this technology isn't of human origin? What if they discovered something beyond their understanding?" The chamber fell silent as the Helix commanders contemplated this disturbing idea. "All the more reason to capture it," the Prime Director finally declared. "Prepare the intercept vessels. We will secure both the technology and this Commander Reed." In Reed's office, Captain Harlow watched the commander with growing concern. "Are you certain about this, Elias? If something goes wrong—" "The augur gives us a 93% chance of success," Reed interrupted. "Those are better odds than we'll ever have again. And if they capture the augur?" Reed's expression remained inscrutable. "They won't understand what they've captured until it's too late." Dr. Archer entered, her face tense. "The shuttle is prepared, but I must register my objection one final time. The augur isn't just technology, Elias. You know that better than anyone." "I know exactly what it is, Vivian," Reed replied softly. "That's why this will work." Archer studied her colleague's face. "You've changed since you started communing with it. Sometimes I hardly recognize you." "I've gained perspective," Reed acknowledged. "The augur has shown me possibilities beyond our conflict with the Helix. Possibilities that could benefit both our species. At what cost?" Archer pressed. "You're risking everything on the assumption that an alien intelligence we barely understand has humanity's best interests at heart." Reed's gaze turned distant. "Not just humanity's interests. The augur exists outside our conception of time. It perceives patterns across millennia, across civilizations. What seems like conflict to us is merely growing pains from its perspective." Harlow exchanged a troubled glance with Archer. "Listen to yourself, Elias. You sound like you're under its influence." "Perhaps I am," Reed admitted. "Or perhaps I've simply been shown a truth too vast for our limited perspective." 12 hours later, a small shuttle departed Earth's atmosphere, ostensibly on a diplomatic mission to the neutral scientific outpost near Jupiter. Aboard were Dr. Archer and a heavily shielded container. As predicted, 3 Helix vessels intercepted the shuttle just past the Martian orbit. The shuttle offered no resistance as it was drawn into the hold of the largest alien ship. The Prime Director observed as human containers were brought into the examination chamber. Dr. Archer stood defiantly beside a cylindrical object approximately 2 meters tall, covered in warning symbols. "This is the predictive technology?" Zorthan inquired. "The augur," Archer confirmed. "As Commander Reed promised." "And where is Reed?" "He'll surrender once you confirm you have what you want." The Helix scientists approached the container cautiously. Scans revealed complex energy patterns unlike anything in their database. When they attempted to open the sealed container, Archer stepped forward. "I wouldn't do that without proper preparation," she warned. "The augur's interface requires specific protocols." The Prime Director's membrane darkened with suspicion. "Explain these protocols." Archer hesitated. "The augur processes temporal data, information from potential future timelines. Human physiology can only interact with it through specialized neural interfaces." She gestured to a smaller device she carried. "This mediates the connection." After extensive scans confirmed no obvious weapons or traps, the Helix commanders agreed to allow Archer to demonstrate. With deliberate movements, she connected her device to the container and activated a sequence. The cylinder hummed softly, then opened to reveal what appeared to be a sphere of quicksilver, much smaller than the original in Fort Quintus. "This is a mobile extension of the main auger system," Archer explained. "Less powerful, but still functional." The sphere began to pulse with soft blue light, projecting what appeared to be star charts into the air above it. "It's showing the current position of your fleet," Archer noted. "Now it will project the optimal attack pattern for your next assault on Earth." The Helix commanders watched, entranced, as complex battle formations materialized in the projection, sophisticated strategies they had indeed been considering. "Remarkable," the Prime Director admitted. "But how does it work?" "That's difficult to explain," Archer replied. "The auger doesn't exactly predict the future. Rather, it processes almost infinite variables to calculate probabilities." "Bring Commander Reed here," the Prime Director ordered. "We require his expertise to fully utilize this technology." Intelligence Director Mirsov approached the sphere, her translucent form reflecting its silvery surface. "The energy patterns are unlike any technology we've encountered. There appears to be some form of quantum entanglement at its core. Can it be replicated?" the Prime Director inquired. "Unknown," Mirsov admitted. "Its fundamental structure defies our current understanding of physics." Enforcement Specialist Nix Tarl pulsed impatiently. "Whether we understand it or not is irrelevant. Can we use it against the humans?" "That depends on Commander Reed," Archer interjected. "He has formed a unique bond with the auger. Without him, you're only seeing a fraction of its capabilities." The Prime Director's membrane rippled with anticipation. "Then let us welcome the commander aboard." Reed arrived on the Helix command vessel 6 hours later, surrendering without resistance. When brought before the High Command, he showed no fear. "Your predictive technology is impressive," the Prime Director acknowledged, "but it cannot save your world from our superior forces. It was never meant to," Reed replied calmly. "The auger wasn't designed as a weapon. Then what is its purpose?" Reed approached the silver sphere, which pulsed more intensely in his presence. "Communication." Before the Helix commanders could respond, Reed placed his hand directly on the sphere's surface. The quicksilver material flowed over his fingers, then up his arms, spreading rapidly across his body. Alarms blared as Helix security moved to intervene, but froze when Reed spoke again, his voice now layered with harmonic overtones. "We have waited long for this moment," he said, the silver substance now covering him entirely. "The convergence point." Dr. Archer stepped back, her mission complete. "They're all yours now." The Prime Director's membrane paled. "What are you?" The silver-covered Reed tilted his head. "We exist in the interstices between moments, observing all potential timelines. You know us as the Augur, but we have been called many names across many worlds." Understanding dawned on the Helix commanders too late. What they had believed to be a predictive technology was actually an entity, a being that existed beyond normal temporal constraints. "Your invasion was never going to succeed," the Silver Reed continued. "We chose this timeline specifically because it offered the highest probability for peaceful contact between our civilizations." "Peaceful?" Zorthon bubbled indignantly. "You've destroyed half our invasion fleet." "A regrettable necessity to bring us to this moment," the entity replied. "Had we approached openly, your species would have attempted to weaponize our abilities, just as humans initially tried." The silver substance began to spread beyond Reed, flowing across the floor of the chamber toward the Helix commanders. "What are you doing?" the Prime Director demanded. "Retreating." "Offering perspective," the entity answered. "Your species believes conquest is the only path to survival. We will show you alternatives." The silver substance touched each of the Helix commanders, who convulsed briefly before growing still. Their membranous bodies pulsed with new patterns of bioluminescence. "We have shared with them visions of possible futures," the entity explained to Archer. "All potential outcomes of this conflict." The Prime Director spoke, its voice now carrying the same harmonic overtones as Reed's. "We understand now. War benefits neither of our civilizations." Archer watched with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "What have you done to Commander Reed?" The silver figure turned toward her. "Elias Reed offered himself willingly as our vessel. He remains, but is now part of something greater, as are the Helix commanders." "And what happens now?" Archer asked. "Now," the entity replied, "we rebuild what conflict has damaged and prepare for what comes next." "What comes next?" The silver figure's features shifted into something approximating a smile. The convergence of civilizations. The Helix and humanity are not the only species approaching technological singularity in this sector of the galaxy. There are others, some friendly, some not. All must be brought into balance. Secondary strategist Vex Lear, his form now streaked with silver, addressed Archer. We have seen the timeline where our species continues this war. Both civilizations are devastated. Neither survives the coming darkness from beyond. What darkness? Archer demanded. That, said the entity through Reed's silver form, is what we must prepare for together. 3 weeks later, Reed stood before the United Earth Defense Council, still showing faint traces of silver beneath his skin. Beside him, a Helix representative, formerly Zorthon, floated in a specialized environmental chamber. The entity we called the Augur has made contact with 17 other civilizations across our galaxy, Reed explained to the assembled leaders. It exists to facilitate understanding between species at critical junctures in their development. And we're supposed to trust these aliens now? General Santos demanded. After they tried to conquer us, the Helix Collective has withdrawn all military forces from our solar system, Reed replied. And they've offered to share technology that will help us restore environmental damage to our planet. The Helix representative's translation device activated. We have seen the potential futures where our civilizations destroy each other. We have also seen those where we thrive together. The choice is logical. Council Chairperson Diana Frost leaned forward. And what of this entity, the Augur? What assurance do we have that it isn't controlling both our species now? Reed smiled slightly. The entity doesn't control, it illuminates. It showed me possible futures so I could guide humanity toward the optimal outcome. It did the same for the Helix. The choices remained ours. And where is this entity now? Frost pressed. Everywhere and nowhere, Reed answered. It exists partly within me, partly within the Helix commanders it touched, and partly in dimensions we can't perceive. But it has always been here, waiting for species to evolve enough to recognize it. That doesn't sound very reassuring, Commander. Reed nodded in acknowledgement. Perhaps not. But consider this. It could have conquered both our civilizations effortlessly. Instead, it orchestrated a path to peaceful coexistence. I believe that reveals its true nature. General Santos remained skeptical. And what does this entity want from us now? Preparation, Reed replied. The Augur perceives threats beyond our current understanding, dangers that will require multiple civilizations working in concert to address. What kind of threats? Frost asked. Reed exchanged a glance with the Helix representative. The entity has shown us glimpses of something vast approaching from the galactic rim. Not for decades, perhaps centuries, but coming nonetheless. A force that consumes civilizations, that exists in dimensions beyond our comprehension. So we're trading one alien threat for another, Santos observed dryly. No, Reed countered. We're gaining an ally against a common enemy. The Augur has been guiding civilizations toward cooperation for millennia, preparing the galaxy for this eventual confrontation. As the council debated, Reed glanced toward the observation gallery where Dr. Archer watched. They shared a knowing look, both forever changed by their communion with the entity. That evening, as Reed stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, he felt the familiar stirring of the silver consciousness within him. They're afraid, he acknowledged aloud, though no one else was present. Can you blame them? The voice that responded came not from outside, but from within his own mind. Fear is natural when confronting the unknown, but they will adapt, as your kind always does. And the Helix? They have already begun the transition. Their history of conquest made them resistant initially, but now they see the greater pattern. Reed watched as a Helix vessel moved into orbit alongside human ships, former enemies now cautious allies. How many times have you done this? Brought species together? Many, though not all succeed. Some civilizations cannot overcome their nature, cannot see beyond immediate gain. And those that fail? A profound sadness emanated from the entity. They do not survive what comes. The universe is cyclical, Commander. Great waves of creation and destruction have swept through it since before your sun ignited. We help those we can. By manipulating them, Reed noted without accusation, by offering clarity. The choice remains with each civilization. We cannot force cooperation or understanding. We can only reveal possibilities. Reed considered this as he watched the Earth rotate below, its blue oceans and swirling clouds now seeming fragile and precious. You showed me thousands of possible futures. In how many do we survive what's coming? Enough to warrant hope, the entity replied, which is all any species can ask for. The war that never truly began was over. The real challenge, building a future between two fundamentally different species, was just beginning. But for the first time, both civilizations could see the potential outcomes of their choices, illuminated by an intelligence that existed beyond time itself. And somewhere between moments, the entity they had called the Augur continued its ancient mission, guiding civilizations toward convergence points where understanding might flourish across the stars.